All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our Tech Talk today with the Tech Academy. Today we have Gaurav Valani here with us, and they're going to give us some tips on how to land high-paying jobs in tech. As I said earlier, so make sure you leave your questions in the chat, and we will definitely get to them. But thank you for being here with us, and take it away.
Sounds good. Thank you guys for having me. Spencer, I freaking love your t-shirt. It is so nice. I want one. Okay. Today, you guys, I'm going to teach you exactly what Regina just said, which is how to land high-paying jobs in tech. I promise you something. The stuff that I'm going to show you today is going to work really well, but it does require you at certain parts of this process, which we're going to dive deep on. I asked this time that we go an hour and a half so I can answer all of your questions, but there are parts that will make you uncomfortable during this whole process. But like on the other side of uncomfort or discomfort rather, is where all the magic happens. And I promise that. So in the spirit of being uncomfortable, just for 1 second, can everyone who is able to just share their screens and say hello, wave? I just want to see you guys before I jump in. Serengeti, you can't do it. I get it. Hi, Spencer. Greg, nice to meet you. McKay, nice to meet you. James, you're not able to? All right. 12 others. All right. Well, thank you. Oh, there it is. Hi, William. Hey, John. Thank you guys for showing your faces. It makes this a little bit more personal. Otherwise, I'm just talking to a blank screen most of the time. Okay. So you guys want to get into it? Let me share my screen. Dang it. On Apple, like, you know, when you're like your browser, what's this thing called? Your toolbar comes up, then I can't see the buttons. How do I send this thing? Hold on.
Maybe you have to make it like exit out.
There we go.
Like,
I got it. I
yeah.
got it. You know what's sad is I teach people how to get jobs in tech, and I literally don't even know how to share a screen sometimes. So my fault. All right, here we go. Also, can I just preface? I am a very, very cheap person. So the presentation you're going to see here was built on Canva. And I did not purchase the like advanced Canva thing. So you're going to see a lot of watermarks, but that is because I'm cheap and I don't want to spend the $12, right? So, okay, we're doing this talk. This is what it's about. You already know that. I've been in the career coaching world, staffing, recruiting world, you name it, for, I don't know, since 2007. And I was once a recruiter. And I know you guys hate recruiters, and I do too sometimes because they're very cringy. But that is where I learned most of the stuff that I'm going to be teaching you today. And I learned that, so in Career Sprout, I've had Career Sprout since 2016. We've coached now, actually, I should update this, but who cares? A little over 670 people. And I find the same mistakes over and over. The thing that people regret the most is that they never took the time to figure out how to build a meaningful career. They never took the time to figure out what they want in their career. They never took the time to fast forward down the line and say, what do I want to achieve long term? And then reverse engineer how to get that. And the reason we're never taught that is because we were never told why it's important to do that in the first place. Most of you went to boot camps, or most of you went to school somewhere, maybe college. And you know this, in college, they never teach us like how to think about our career holistically. They just say, all right, you got your degree. Here's how you put together a resume, go and apply to a bunch of jobs and keep your resume under one page. And that's like literally the same advice that we've been hearing since forever and a day. And it doesn't work. And it's really done a disservice to most people. And so as a result, when people don't know how to think about their career holistically, they don't kind of think about the end in mind. They are very unsure about what to do. So they usually kind of just take the first job they can get, then they don't like it, then they bounce around and take another job, and they kind of never really figure out their careers. And so this is what I'm going to help you avoid today, because we're going to be very intentional about what we do in the job search process. Okay. I don't want you bouncing around. I don't want you to have FOMO. I don't want you to think, what if, and never feel like I'm not living up to my potential. And honestly, I don't know how long some of you in here have worked. It doesn't matter. Because a lot of people think, well, I've had a crappy career up until now. Why is it ever going to change? I promise you, your past never dictates your future. And I will, if you, at anyone, if they ever care to learn about my story, I'll tell you my own past. It was complete garbage before it turned around. And so much of why it turned around is what I learned that I put into this presentation today. So this is what I promise you are going to learn by the end of this webinar. You're going to learn how to land a high-paying job that can increase your salary between 25,000 to 100,000 in less than 67 days. The reason, how do I have these stats, is because this is what our clients achieve in our program. So let's jump right into it. Oh, okay. Your one promise. I want you guys to at least type in the chat. If you find this thing valuable, promise me that you will pay it forward and share some of this advice to other people in your networks or families, friends, colleagues, whatever. Whoever is laid off, just share it with them. Can you guys promise me that? Yeah. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Greg. Cool. Regina, you didn't say yes. Just kidding. Okay. I'm not going to spend too much time about my background, but as I was saying, this is just the highlights. My first job, FYI, was selling Yellow Page ads. Any of you here know what Yellow Pages are? That's how old I am. Like, I probably feel like I'm 76 years old because that's what I did first in 2007. The saddest part was the internet was around when I was selling Yellow Pages. Like, how sad is that? I'm going into stores and saying, hey, you want to advertise in the Yellow Page? And they're like, dude, what are you talking about? Have you heard of Google? Anyway, then I became a recruiter. And I ended up starting my own staffing agency with 6 other people. We raised $1 million to do it from friends and family. Most desperate thing I've ever done in my life. 13 months later, we had lost $760,000 of that $1 million that we raised. I won't tell this story right now because it's not important, but I somehow, after sending 77 emails, I got a meeting with Elon Musk, landed a Tesla as our account. That kind of was the rocket ship that helped us do everything. And I decided from here on out, we're going to play big. And we grew that company from negative 760,000 to 72 million in 5 years, and sold it for about 11 something million back in 2016. And then I started Career Sprout. So everything that I've learned along the way of helping people land high paying jobs is what I've put into this thing. So let's get into it. Okay. Last year, what happened? 160,000 people got unemployed, right? They got laid off, fired, whatever. And then what has happened this year? Much of the same, right? But already it's only been less than a quarter into the new year, and 87,000 people have lost their jobs. You guys see this all day on LinkedIn, I assume, because I do. So I ran the numbers. Why did it happen? Inflation, overspending, interest rates, realignment, you name it. But in our program, we're seeing the complete opposite. Very opposite of what you're seeing on LinkedIn, which is negative news, negative news, negative news. And as you're seeing these people, either to yourself or in the chat, I don't really care. Just congratulate them, because I know this can be you. And this will be you if you guys follow these steps. And I've broken down the steps. But this is Kushali. Kushali was in our program, landed a $45,000 increase. This is another Catherine. Catherine, what was her job offer? It just happened. She was making 165 and now it's 260, head of revenue. And it was for a fintech company. Tech is where it's all happening. Fintech, especially if you guys are considering what area of tech to go into, if you can somehow finagle it, fintech is the place to be. That's where all the high paying jobs are right now. Oh, her final offer was 425,000. Nuts, right? And then here's just a few more clients that we've worked with along the way. Software engineer. This guy ended up making 7 figures because of the stock that he got in the company. Cynthia did this thing, whatever, right? I kid you not, and this is not to sound like I'm bragging. I promise you I'm not. But we have more testimonials than anyone in this industry. And this is just what happened in Q3 of last year, Q1 of this year. We're seeing people 19 of our clients got offers. Average salary was 33,000. And in the past 4 weeks, it's even been more specific to that. Dude, I'll show you something right now. Can I just share that? Can I share my screen? Can I share my text messages? Is that
Yeah,
like
go for it. I mean, it's up to you,
okay?
definitely.
Is
Just
that
to
creep?
let you know, it is recorded, so
All right,
up to
whatever.
you.
Can you guys
Okay.
see this text message right here?
It's a bit small.
I know. Let me expand the text message. Look at this just now. This is literally today, 12:43. I was texting while I was talking to you guys. Product manager. Just got this offer, 190 up from 175, blah, blah, blah. Earlier this week, he got this offer. He had 3 offers this week alone. So this is like these testimonials are happening like in real time. Okay. Now I don't want you guys seeing text messages from my mom. So let me go back and present. But this is what I'm saying. This is happening in real time. People are getting constant offers. Okay, so what am I teaching you? None of this is magic. Sometimes people think it's too good to be true. It's really not. Oh, by the way, this coaching program, I don't know if you guys met Katie. She's talked to Regina. She and I agreed that we're going to give away 1 free seat in our program, our coaching program, to someone in here today. All you have to do is share something that you find valuable in this presentation, either on LinkedIn or Instagram. I don't care. Here are the things. Don't do it on Facebook. No one follows me on Facebook, except for my mom. So that's how you're going to win a free seat. So by the way, we'll just like announce it wherever we see the people posting. We're just going to pick one random post, and then either we'll message you and we'll message Regina, and you guys will get you all the access to our program, coaching calls, all the things. Okay, so what are the 3 things? 1, this is the most important, is removing outdated belief patterns and outdated systems that don't work. 2, it's incorporating a proven system that actually does work. And then 3, it's knowing how to execute that system down to the T. Okay, so let's start with mindset. I'm not going to spend too much time on mindset, but I do think it's extremely important, especially if you've been laid off, out of work, not in the career that you want, feel undervalued, underpaid, all the things. See, here's a Canva watermark I was talking about. That's when people's mindsets start kind of tricking them, right? And I think it's extremely important to have a growth mindset rather than a fixed. Growth means what? That we believe that there's more possible that we can achieve. We just don't know it yet, right? So this is what you're going to learn. Why is it difficult for us to change our mindsets? It's because we're fighting decades worth of entrenched beliefs that have been ingrained in us. If you think about it, right, your mindset kind of like happened by accident, right? And your mindset is directly visible in the things that you think every day, the things that you do every day, the way you act every day, right? And it kind of like slowly builds over time. How does it build? Well, it's how you were raised, maybe bullying, social circles, the things that you choose to kind of digest, right? What you're reading, what you're watching. And again, if you're on LinkedIn all day, you're just hearing nothing but people getting laid off day in, day out, day in, day out. And so that can affect our mindset too, right? So it's the information you choose to consume and how it's consumed or taught to you. It's what creates your mindset imprint. So how do we change that mindset? It's through the science of brain plasticity, meaning the more we start adopting new beliefs, the more we start consuming new information, the more faith that we have, the more we mirror people's actions that are successful, the people who are in positions we want to be, the more we start changing our beliefs, the more we start understanding how to actually go and achieve that. In what you're about to do, the job search process, you don't really need to recreate the wheel. You just need to know what works and then just follow that. And the more you start following it, the more you will start believing that you can achieve what you're going after. So mindset affects your outcome, your happiness, and removes you as an obstacle. The only belief that matters is that you can grow and that you can always keep getting better. You have to believe that. So what are some of the mindset shifts we can make today? Here's 4 of them. People think leaving my job is too much of a risk because of all the crap that's going on in the economy. Well, that's not true. People think I shouldn't negotiate when I get an offer because I've been out of work for so long. That's not true, right? People think now's not, I won't get hired because the market is too competitive. There's so many people in the that are unemployed. They're probably better than me. That's okay. That doesn't mean that you're unqualified. That doesn't mean you can't find what you're looking for. And ask yourself this. This is what a mentor told me. When I started that staffing agency, after years of like having a really unfulfilled, underpaying career, the story, like when I met when we started that agency, it was 2012, and I met my wife that same year. And up until then, I hadn't made more than, I think, like $45,000. And then I meet my wife. At the time, she was my girlfriend. She's a teacher. And I was like, we are literally going to be poor for the rest of my life. And so I almost thought I shouldn't start this agency. I should just stick it out and stay as a recruiter or whatever. And my mentor told me, he's like, well, what's the worst case scenario if this whole thing doesn't work out? Like you starting an agency doesn't work out. And I said, well, I guess I could go back to being a recruiter for an agency. And he said, great. Well, then how does it feel to be living your worst case scenario? And that hit me like a ton of bricks. So same thing with you guys. What's the worst case scenario if you try what I'm about to teach you? Worst case scenario is you end up here, right? It's not that bad. And also, I like to believe that the worst case scenario is just the worst case scenario, but it's not the only case scenario. So you guys ready to get into it? You want to hear the strategy? Okay. Let's go. Another Canva watermark. Okay, so what is the proven system that yields predictable results? And I want to give you a disclaimer. 4 years ago, I hired a personal trainer, and this guy was like, okay, here's what you're going to eat. You're going to eat blah, 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 blah. And then here's how you're going to work out. You're going to work out 5 days a week, and you're going to do a little bit of chest and a little bit of this. And I was like, whoa. And like, he gave me the step. Then he's like, and here's how you're going to recover, right? So he's like, eat this, work out this way, and this is how you recover. And every Monday after the weekend, I'd have to meet with him, and he'd ask me, what did you eat this weekend? And I remember this specifically. One day he told me, or he asked me, what'd you eat? And I said, oh, this weekend I had like 3 slices or 4 slices of cheesecake, because I like love cheesecake. And then he went off on me. He's like, how can you eat cheesecake? Don't you know that messes up your macronutrients or whatever these terms are? And I was like, oh my God, relax. And he's like, but he was like, look, if you want to hit these results, like gaining muscle, I have like no muscle. He's like, this is how you're going to do it. So follow the process. So same thing with you guys. The system I'm going to show you, follow it to the like step by step. Don't eat the cheesecake, meaning don't cut ahead. Okay. Just follow it step by step, please. Okay. Here's the old way of searching for jobs. You guys know this because some of you just typed it in. I've been applying to as many jobs as possible. Barely hear back. Finally land an interview. That interview doesn't go well. Then you finally land another interview. At some point, you finally get a job. It's not even the job that you want, but because you have no other options, you take that job. Now you get into that job. You hate that job. A year later, you're like, screw this. Let me go and look again, right? And same process follows. But it doesn't have to be this way. So this is the new process that we're going to teach you. It's going to teach you how to assemble a very thorough job search strategy. Okay? This is what it takes to land a high-paying job. So here is the system. The first step is defining your career nirvana. Remember, we always want to think with the end in mind. The second is having a keyword-optimized resume and LinkedIn profile. The third is intentional networking. I'm going to explain all of this to you, then consultative interviewing, and then negotiating a baller offer. And finding a new job, just so you know, it never starts with your resume. That's why it's the second step here. Okay, it never starts with your resume. It starts by identifying your end goal and then reverse engineering the best path to help you get there. So, career nirvana, Eminem, New York. What does this have to do with anything? Regina's in New York right now, so this doesn't apply to you. But let's assume all of you are in Portland right now, or all of you are somewhere on the West Coast. If I said, McKay, or Spencer or Rajiv, I want you to drive from Portland to New York, and you can't use any GPS device. No maps, nobody else in your car. You just have to drive from Portland to New York. Okay. And you have to, for whatever reason, listen to me, because I have muscle now. I have a personal trainer and I could beat you up. Okay. What's going to happen? Well, all of you are smart enough to know that, okay, fine. If I just drive northeast long enough, at some point, I will get to New York. Right? We all agree on that? Okay. Well, how long will it take you? We have no idea. How many times are you going to get lost, Spencer? We don't know. How many times are you going to stop at places you don't want to stop at, McKay? Who knows? But you're going to do it, right? How much money, Rajiv, are you going to burn on gas? Who knows? But at some point, because you guys are all smart enough to know Northeast is the place to be, you'll end up in New York. Where in New York you end up, we don't know. You might end up in Buffalo, and who the heck wants to be in Buffalo? Excuse me for those of you who might be in Buffalo. You might end up in some really shady parts of New York City that we don't want to be there. But because it took you forever and a day, because you spent so much money on gas, because you probably stink and smell and you're tired and frustrated, you'll just stop and park your car and say, I'm just going to call it and stay there for a little bit, right? But instead, if I said, McKay, Spencer, Rajiv, I want you to drive from Portland to the M&M store in downtown Manhattan. And this time, you can use any GPS device that you want. What's going to happen? You're literally going to put it into your Waze or Google Maps or whatever, right? And you'll have the fastest possible route to the M&M store. You won't burn gas, that unwasted gas. You won't stop at places you want to stop at. You'll literally get there as fast as you possibly can, and you'll get some M&Ms out of it, right? Think about how that relates to people's careers. How many times do they stop at companies they shouldn't stop at? How many times do they take jobs they shouldn't have taken? How many times do they get frustrated because the job that they're in or the company that they're at doesn't support them or support their growth, toxic culture, whatever? Why is that? Because it's hard to tell a good opportunity from a bad one when you haven't defined what your end goal is. So we need a map, which is why we want to start with defining your career nirvana, or AKA your M&M store. You guys all agree so far on this part? So what's the fastest way we can define what that is? In our program, we have a lot of strategies, but I'm going to teach the most effective one. It's called the career mapping exercise. This is where it's actually the simplest possible thing. Go and look at other people's careers. Go on LinkedIn, type in CTO, type in director of engineering, type in head of product, type in whatever you think you would want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever. Look at least 15 to 20 people's profiles who are in this position today. Study how they got to where they want to be. And I kid you not, if you look at 15 to 20 profiles of someone who's already where you want to be today, you will see a consistent pattern. You'll see what kind of positions they've taken, what kind of projects they've worked on, what kind of companies they joined, what extracurricular things they did. You will see a pattern. When you start understanding this, your next step gets very clear. So if you want to be a CFO and you're just in this little old accountant today, and you start studying the map of what other CFOs have done, publicly traded CEOs, privately held company CEOs, you'll see they all kind of follow a very similar path. When you know what they're doing, now your next step becomes extremely clear. And if you study it more and you look at it very closely, you'll see some of them went to startups. Some of them went to bigger companies. Some of them went to startups first, then bigger companies, or bigger companies first, then startups. And there's a framework I'll explain for that. If you're earlier in your career, I always recommend in the beginning, try to work for a little bit of a bigger company, because that's where you can specialize and really refine your skill sets. And you have a big company on your name, you'll know how they work, the ins and outs. You'll probably secure a lot of mentors internally. You'll see how some other really strong people do it, and you'll learn from them. And then go to the smaller company as you kind of get later in your career if you want, because smaller companies love people who come from bigger companies. And they'll also pay you way more because you had that big company experience. You've defined your skill set. Right? When you go to a startup in the beginning, they kind of have you working on so many different things that it gets really hard to get to know, well, what am I actually good at? Because I've just worn 50 different hats. Right? And it's harder to go from startup to big company, but it's easy to go from big company to startup. Okay, so you later in your career, you kind of want to be the big fish in the small pond. Earlier in your career, you want to be the small fish in the big ocean. So your action item just for this step alone is to define your M&M store. Go and do some career mapping exercises. Okay, step 2 then is okay, let me take a step back. Maybe some of you are in this position. Tell me if you are. When you put together your resume is usually at the worst possible time, right? You're frustrated, you just got laid off, you hate the thing you're a part of. So you're like, you know what? Let me slap together a resume and go and apply to hundreds of jobs. So when you put together a resume, what do? You literally just talk about everything you've ever done up until that point, right? How can you attract new types of opportunities when all you've talked about is the old thing you've been doing? This is why we never start with the resume. Remember I mentioned that? We start with the resume once we define what that ideal next step is, and then we write the resume that aligns with that next step. And there's various aspects that make a resume compelling. It needs to be keyword optimized. So how do we do that? You want to have a strong summary. This summary is, I could show you 20 different examples of clients right now. They all follow the same exact summary. What does it have? Tangible information. What does it exclude? Fluff. What is fluff? Fast-paced learner, passionate, driven, blah, blah, blah. You know, whatever. That's fluff, right? Because it's not quantifiable. So we don't say anything like that. We just say what we've done, who we've done it for, and what we've helped accomplish. And then you always want to have a skills section. Skills section is what keyword optimizes your resume up the yin yang. Where do you find these skills? You'll see them in every job description. So once you know what your next job is, go and study 15 to 20 of those job descriptions. Again, you'll see a consistent pattern showing up over and over and over again of what they're asking for. And each of those job descriptions usually includes skills. So those skills, if you possess them or at least can speak to them, they should go right here. And then tools. Do you know why? Because this is what recruiters search for. Recruiters only search for what's on the job description because that's all they've been taught. Right? We have a mini pea brain and we're like, okay, it's on the job description. Let me type in GitHub. Let me type in .NET. Let me type in Java. Let me type whatever, right? And that's all we look for. So we only need to look for the things that hiring managers and recruiters look for on resumes. So you always want to start with a compelling profile because this is what catches their attention. Skills, tools is what helps it get keyword optimized. And then you want to have accomplishments. For each job that you've held, you want to be able to list at least 1 to 2 or maybe 3 accomplishments of what did you do there? Did you release 1,000 lines of code? Or did you help decrease the cost of something? Did you help improve the efficiency of something? Did you help build an app that created more monthly active users? Did you help increase revenue? Whatever it was, even if you didn't directly do it, but you had some part of it, then it's attributable achievements that you can list. This is what catches the hiring manager's attention. And just so you guys know, like you guys have probably searched for stuff on Google, right? And when you search for something and you hit search, you probably stay on the first page of the search results, right? Do you ever go to page 2 and definitely ever go to page 3? No. They always say, you know, where websites go to die is on page 2 of a Google search. It's the same thing with resumes. The more keyword optimized your resume is, the higher it shows up on search results. And recruiters are just like you and I. They won't usually go to page 2 or page 3 of these like job boards or these, you know, where you can post your resume. So it is important that you keyword optimize your resume so that it shows up on the first page of these results. Worst case, second page, right? And if you ever want to know what's a good way to see if your resume is keyword optimized, job scans are a really good tool for that. It's free too. It's free like for up to like 10 times of doing it or something like that. And what you do is you literally will post the job description on one side, your resume on the other side, and then you'll hit scan and then it'll tell you. And FYI, job scans a company, they want to make money. So they try to rank things really low. We found after using this tool for the last 4.5 years, if you get a score of 75 or above, and even honestly like 65 or above, your resume is ready to go. And if it isn't, if it's below that, it'll tell you what keywords you need to include. And then when you know those keywords, just add them right back here into either your skills, your summary, or your accomplishments, wherever. Fair enough. Yeah, teal's actually really good too, Prashant. Thank you for sharing that. When you do it right, you get people calling you. This is one of our clients, Srinath. I'm like putting everyone's last name and blasting out their info here. It's sad, but whatever. You'll get two, like he got 2 calls from Facebook, Amazon, I think and Apple. And this is all because he just posted his new resume the way we helped him write it, and it looked like this. So action items are what? Once you've defined your career nirvana, then you know what your next role is. Study 15 to 20 job descriptions of that role. Build your resume using the ingredients I mentioned: summary, skills, tools, accomplishments. And then utilize tools like Teal that Prashant recommended and JobScan. Both of them are actually really good. Teal is actually probably more advanced than JobScan because they're using AI now. Make sense? Okay, I'll keep going. Should I keep going, or anyone have any quick questions up until this point? I don't mind stopping.
Hi, Prashant here. Sorry, quick question. Most of the people on the call, I assume, are from the US, and the only reason I ask is because I am in Canada. So I was just trying to find some common similarities between the two countries because they really are not, and hence the question.
But the process works the same, Prashant. We actually have clients in Canada. We have clients in India, Europe. They use the same exact process because up until now, the process still works, right? There's nothing different. The recruiters search for the same job boards, whether Canada or not. And
No, sorry. I'll
oh,
probably clarify my question. No, sorry, I was not questioning the process. I
oh,
was essentially looking at comments or views from the job market comparison, and whether the process itself is different from an economy and job market perspective. Because, for example, and I'm only talking about Canada. Of course, I don't know much about the US, but if you were to compare, the tech market in Toronto is very different from tech market in Calgary or Vancouver, for example, right? And if you make that same comparison with the tech jobs in Seattle versus New York, is going to be very different. So I'm just coming from that sort of point of view.
okay. Then I'm going to bring it back to your question at the end because I'm still a little unclear as to how it might differ, but I'll definitely come back to you at the end for that.
Sure,
Cool.
thanks.
Okay. And yes, Serengeti, I was hungry when I made this. Okay, so step 3. This is like where everything changes. Okay, so some of you in here mentioned I've been sending out a lot of applications, don't have traction. Sending out applications, don't have traction. It's the same thing over and over and over again. You read that again on LinkedIn. Everyone and their mom is saying, I've been unemployed for 4 months or 7 months and I've sent out 400 applications, haven't heard anything. Everyone sees that. This is why we stop sending applications. Just stop doing it, or make it one part of your job search strategy. What changes everything is intentional networking. We call this value added reach outs in our program. This is where you're going to reach out to hiring managers, recruiters that work at the companies you want to work at, that work at the companies that you see openings for. Also, leveraging your own network or expanding it if you don't have a big one. This could be former colleagues you've worked with. This could be people who once were a part of the tech academy who are now out there working in the world, reaching out to them. This could be friends of friends, could be alumni, could be acquaintances, user groups. And there's so many great user groups. Like for product management, I know there's not really product, but like Women in Products Facebook group is amazing. There's another one called the Tech Workforce. It's a Slack group, also amazing. Women in STEM. And then you can find hundreds of these also on LinkedIn. The beauty of this is now you are in user groups, in Facebook groups, whatever. You're part of a community with other people all geeking out to the same thing you're geeking out to, right? Tech and engineering or product or design or whatever. And what's cool is there's a lot of hiring managers in this group, these types of groups. And from time to time, they'll just post jobs. And they'd rather post a job in there because they have a community of people they trust rather than just blasting it out on LinkedIn and then getting 1,000 applications, right? And what's also nice about being part of these user groups is that when you're in it, you can go and look at the people who and see where they work and reach out to them directly and start building common connections and things like that, right? So you can start conversations with hiring managers. And then on LinkedIn, you can find hiring managers all day. And if we have time for it, I'll show you how to find that at the end. And I'll share my screen and show you. And when you reach out to people, this is what most people do. They'll see a job on LinkedIn or wherever. Then they go and find a recruiter or a hiring manager. They'll say, hey, John, I think I just saw your posting for a software engineer, and I think I'm a really good fit for this role. Would love to chat with you. And then that 9 times out of 10 never works, right? So instead, we want to lead with value. This is a template that we've been using in our program that is converting right now at a 43.7 conversion rate, which means our clients will send out 100 messages to hiring managers and recruiters, and 43 people at minimum will get back to them. And so let's cut that in half just for, for blanks and giggles, right? If you sent out 100 messages, and let's say instead of 43 people, you heard back from 21 people. That's half, right? Isn't that much more effective than sending out 100 applications and maybe hearing back from one recruiter? The answer is yes, right? It is. So now imagine if you send 200 of these things. So in our program, when people send 100 of the, and we will script this stuff with you guys in there, whoever wins the seat, you'll see, we'll script this with you. But this message is so effective because it adds value directly to the hiring manager. It expresses that you've taken the time to understand what pain points they might be feeling and showcasing how you are the solution to those pain points. So if you get 21 conversations set up, right? Now, let's say out of those 21 conversations, only 10 of those turn into interviews. What do you think happens? Now you have a hiring manager inside the company that is championing you throughout the interview process. They will go to HR and say, hey, get McKay into the interview process ASAP because I just spoke to him. I think he's a great fit. Now you're going to meet with the hiring manager's team. You think that team's going to go against what the hiring manager believes? Probably not, right? Unless you royally botch the thing and say, I hate women or something really unnecessary. But you won't botch it. So you want to start by adding value and doing value-added reach outs. Now, what we recommend in our program, just FYI, is go and look at 15, 20 companies. It seems to be the golden number. And then find 5 recruiters and 5 hiring managers. And if you don't know who the hiring manager is, just message people who are 2-3 steps above that title of that position. Senior manager of engineering, director of engineering, head of engineering. Those are probably going to be the things. When you reach out to them, this is what you're saying. And we don't need all 10 people to get back to us. We don't even need 5 people to get back to us. We just need 1. That one conversation can change everything. So this is how we get around sitting there and applying to job after job after job, right? So again, here's a rule of thumb: 5 hiring managers, 5 recruiters from each company. So intentional networking, kind of like a process that it will always benefit you all throughout your life. Because the more you build an intentional network, these are people who are really going to be there to support you. Leaders, hiring managers, right? And if you can nurture that network, it will pay dividends. And here's an example. This is a guy named Wesley. I bring up Wesley in every talk I've ever done. Wesley was like one of my first few clients that I've ever had. I call him a teddy bear because he looks like a teddy bear, right? He actually looks like a teddy bear, which is funny. When he joined our program, he wanted to be a product manager, which is what everyone seems to want to do these days. And he went to a college where he got to choose his own major, and he chose alien studies. Like, he studied aliens. And I was like, Wesley, I don't think I can take your money because I have no way of ever helping someone that studied aliens and now wants to be in product. And he's like, no, you got to do it. And he like convinced me. Again, teddy bear, right? And I was like, all right, fine. And so he didn't have any experience. He had a couple internships. But when we got to this intentional networking part, he was in SF, and this is pre-COVID, but it helps. I'll tell you how it helped post-COVID. Pre-COVID, he just sent out emails and started networking everywhere. And he got like 30-something calls set up with hiring managers, actual hiring managers. And his first job he got was at Snapchat, or Snap, This is before it was. This is like when it was actually cool. I don't know if it's still cool, but so he expressed in the interview that, look, I want to be a product manager. And the hiring manager told him, she said, I cannot hire you as a product manager because you have literally no experience and you studied aliens. She said this to him. And I was like, I told you, Wesley. And they're like, but we can give you a facilities coordinator position. You know what that is? That's the guy who like gets your phones and your chairs and your desk set up. That's what the facilities coordinator does. And Wesley's like, okay, great. I'll take it as long as I can learn how to do product on the side and then be considered for a product role down the line. She's like, you got it. Okay. So first job he gets, 63,000, facilities coordinator. Second job, if you notice, I think after 8 months, he gets as an associate product manager role, bumps up by 14K. Finally gets promoted to a product role, 90K. He goes from this to making $125,000 at a company called Atrium. How did he get this first job after Snap? Network. He just went right back to the people he was networking with during the intentional networking part. And then he, reached out to all the people and like he got several interviews and got this job. So he gets laid off April 2020. This is like the thick of COVID, right? If you remember. And then 28 days later, he gets this job at Cloudflare. $250,000. You guys can message this guy and he'll tell you. And how did he get that job? Same thing. He just picked up the phone, called the people he's been in touch with all throughout these years. This is what I mean by you have to kind of nurture the network that you're going to build during this step because it can lead to you. Who knows? Oh, here's something funny. So I forget some of the slides I have on here. This is another guy named Mehul. He was in finance. He just sent this he was doing the same thing. He worked at Chipotle. Okay. He was like finance strategy or whatever. And then we did the same thing. He sent a message to the CFO at Qdoba. And within, I think the same day or the next day, this guy, who's the CFO at Qdoba, messaged him back. Said, I hope that my note finds you safe and well. That's what Mehul sent. Look, this is what this guy sent. Levathian, or I don't know how to say it, but thanks for reaching out. I'd love to have a more proper introduction if you're up for it. Do you have some time to? That's the CFO of a freaking company doing that. Isn't that pretty sweet? Can you guys see how this is going to work for you if you just follow the steps? Because this is a very quiet room. Put it in the chat. Could you see how this could work? You see how amped up I get about this because I just know it works? It's crazy. Look at these. And Gina's a software engineer. She did the same thing. I got responses back from Squarespace, Pinterest, WillowTree, Twilio, Airbnb, YouTube, Google, Asana, whatever, right? This guy sent this message. Patik is the name of my client. He sent this message to Brett Christopher. Right? Look at me just showcasing everyone's info out there again. And he's like, look, I applaud you for your bold approach and self-advocacy. I've passed your message and profile to the hiring managers of this position. Pretty rad, right? The reason I showed this other guy, Amit, is because he's in India. Same thing works in India. He said, good morning, Amit. Are you interested in learning about a product manager opportunity? Duh. Right? Of course he is. This guy, same name as me, manager of account planning and strategic analysis. So look at this. He said, I accepted an offer today. And I said, what? And he said, it's at CVS. Remember the contact I made via LinkedIn? We sent her a Starbucks gift card. She introduced me to one of her contacts. He and I had an exploratory call. He got a new role at CVS. After 6 rounds of interviewing, they made me an offer at 160, 15K bonus, 20K, 15K sign on. And I said, is that a 60K pay bump? And he said, yeah, but after everything, it's a 100K pay bump. All those networking and exploratory calls paid off. Nuts, right? It's honestly, it's like kind of like a little secret. No one does this because they just sit there and apply to job after job after job. But it's like, or just don't apply to job after job after job and just reach out to senior leaders at companies and tell them something they might want to hear. And you might get a conversation. I'd rather have 5 conversations with senior leaders than 50 conversations with recruiters. So what are your action items? This part took the longest. You're going to connect with 5 hiring managers. And again, if you don't know how to do this, I'll walk you through that on the back end of it. Join at least 3 user groups. If worst case, type Google Slack communities, best Slack communities for software engineers, best Slack communities for Java engineers, best Slack communities for full stack developers, or go on LinkedIn. Then reconnect with some former colleagues, acquaintances. Go look up people in LinkedIn. All you have to do is type in the Tech Academy. Go just type that up and then click on people. And then you'll see everyone who once went through the Tech Academy and where they're working now. Reach out to them. And then use the script that I gave you guys on the back end, like a few slides ago. So if you missed it, it's this one. Okay? Those are your action items once you've done the first 2 steps. All right. Now we get to what's going to happen once you start getting phone calls, because you will get phone calls and you will get interviews. So remember I said this earlier, we want to avoid coming across as someone looking for some job, because why? That comes across as desperate. Desperation is the stinkiest cologne or perfume that you can ever wear. So instead, we want to come across as the solution to the problem the company is trying to solve. Okay? And so we do this through a process called consultative interviewing. You guys have heard of like Deloitte or Bain or McKinsey. You guys have heard of that? Accenture, these big consulting firms. Do you know what these consulting firms do? They make billions of dollars because they'll go to Disney. They'll go and say, "Hey, Disney, it looks like you guys are trying to do this change transformation project. We can do this for $50 billion or a gazillion dollars." And Disney's like, "Okay, here's a gazillion dollars. Thanks, Deloitte." How do you think that happens? Deloitte doesn't go to Disney and say, "Hey, we can do this for you." No, they go to Disney and they say, "Hey, it seems like you guys are trying to roll out this new mobile app across all of your water parks and resorts division. And we'd love to know, what are you building? What's the goal of it? What have you done up until now? When do you want to launch it? What's your budget? Blah, 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 blah." And then they'll say, "By the way, what happens if you're not able to get this up and running in time?" Disney starts telling them all of their pain points, all of their pain points, all of their pain points. Then what does Deloitte do? They say, "Okay, let us go back and see if this is something we can even help you with," even though they know they can't. Deloitte goes back, puts together a fancy presentation, and they say, "Hey, Disney, here's how we can help. We can do this, this, this. We have these many resources we can deploy. We can get this done under budget and ahead of your schedule. And by the way, it's going to cost you a gazillion dollars. Is that cool?" Disney's like, "Yeah, that's cool." That's because they've identified pain points and approach a consultative sales approach. You're going to employ a consultative interviewing approach, because it gets them to extract their biggest pain points so that you can position yourself as a solution to those pains. So this is a great question to ask once you get an interview. I guarantee you most people are never asking this question. When you get an interview with someone, I want you to say at the very beginning of the call, be like, "Thank you so much for making the time to speak with me, Regina. I am so looking forward to this call and learning a little bit more about what you guys need. But before we get started," you see how I'm sounding kind of dumb? "But before we get started, would it be okay if I quickly asked you, what was it about my background that made you want to meet with me today?" Regina will be like, "Sure. We love the fact that you've been a career coach for this many years. We have this many students going through our program, blah, blah, blah. And here's where their pain points are. Here's where they're stuck." She'll tell me everything I need to hear. "We love that you've been doing this, 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 and I want to learn more about that, 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 that." Now you have the answers to the test, because what you just learned is what is extremely relevant to that hiring manager, and most importantly, what is irrelevant. Right? So now we know, okay, I'm just going to focus on those things for the rest of the interview unless they ask me different. So this is the first question to ask. I had a guy named Fahim. Well, I hid his name, but now you know his name. He did this. And he's like, "Today's call went really well. Look, my entire game plan was something else, and I switched it up on the spot after she spoon-fed the answer to me." Isn't that cool? So then what happens is, during the middle part of the interview, it becomes very situational and / behavioral. "Tell me about a time when this, how would you handle this? What would you do if this happened?" Whatever, right? And so as you're answering these questions, you want to incorporate what's called a feedback loop. I didn't put this on here, but it's called a feedback loop. So most people treat a conversation very transactionally when they go on an interview. what does that mean? They like sit, they get asked a question, they answer. They get asked a question, they answer. They get asked a question, they answer. But that doesn't really help you stand apart. And you don't even know if what you're answering is correct or not. So we incorporate feedback loops. So when they ask you a question, after you answer it, you say, is that how it would work here? Or did I answer your question correctly? Or I know that was high level. Would you want me to go into any specifics about that? Right? Or something like that. You see what that does is it creates a feedback loop. And now they'll be like, actually, I'd like to know a little bit more about this. Or no, not really. That doesn't work here. Here's how we've done it. Or whatever, right? Now you know how the hiring manager is thinking in real time. So you can switch up your answers to kind of accommodate to what he or she wants to hear. And then we want to probe by asking some pain point type questions. So tell me a little bit about what you're hoping to achieve in the next 6 months by hiring this person. What are some of the biggest challenges you're facing that you'd love to eradicate by hiring this person? How are you grading success in this role? What is your first like 60, 90, 180-day plan? Right? You see that these questions, when you ask that, they're going to say, well, actually, what we're really dealing with right now, or the biggest problem I have, or, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed with whatever, right? And as you're asking these questions and they're telling you the answers, now you know what to kind of like nail in on, right? Zero in on, whatever. And so these are some really good questions to ask, but this is where we want to be consultative and we want to ask them questions. And I'm not going to stick to this, but when you answer questions, just use the star format. If you don't know what that is, Google it. It is a very effective way to answer questions. Now, you don't need to do this verbatim, meaning like not every question needs to be answered in a star format because it can seem a little bit repetitive. But some of the biggest behavioral ones, you want to. But because for the sake of time, we don't want to stick to how do you employ that? Okay. Here's another game changer and helps you stand out. There's 2 questions we ask at the end of every interview. I'm like teaching you guys things that we coach our clients on. It works every time. The second to last question is, as the interview is coming to an end, you always want to say, hey, would it be okay if I quickly recapped what I think you're looking for in this role? It's going to be music to their ears. Because everyone loves, like, it shows that you're demonstrating active listening. And when you repeat back what somebody just told you for the last 30 minutes, 45 minutes, hour, whatever, they're going to feel really good because you listened, right? So they'll say yes. In the history of history, they've always said yes. Okay. So when you ask this, then they'll say, yeah, sure. Then go ahead and repeat. Looks like you want somebody to help you solve for X, Y, Z. Looks like some of the biggest challenges you're facing are 1, 2, 3. What you'd love for me to come in and do over the next 6 months is blah, blah, blah. Did I miss anything? And if you did, they'll tell you. If they didn't, they'll tell you. Okay. Then the next question we ask after we've done the recap, this is the final question of every interview. You say, thank you again for taking the time to meet with me. Based on that recap, do you have any concerns about my ability to step into this role and be effective? Remember how I said you guys have to get uncomfortable in this process? This is one of the parts that are most uncomfortable. Do you have any concerns about my ability to step into this role and be effective? Because I'd love to clarify or confirm your concerns. You guys got that? Yes, it is appropriate to take notes during an interview. Okay, so Aaron Getty said this is some genius level game theory. I'm going to show you real genius level game theory. We hired clinical psychologists when I started Career Sprout to teach us the act of selling. And this is one technique they taught us that I'm going to teach you right now. So when you ask that question, do you have any concerns about my ability to step into this role and be effective? Because I'd love to clarify or confirm your concerns. They'll usually tell you. So what happens if they give you a concern that is valid? We want to use a technique called absorbing versus deflecting. Okay. So most people in this scenario would be like, oh, let's say the example is, yeah, Regina, our only concern is that you don't know how to bake a cake. And let's say Regina's never baked a cake. Okay. Most people would be like, oh, no, but I can learn how to bake a cake. Or no, I definitely think I can do this. Or I definitely, or here's how whatever, right? What did you just do? You deflected what that person's concern was. So now anything that comes out of your mouth right after that, their wall is going to go straight up because they're going to think 10 times out of 10, here it comes. They're going to sell me some bull crap, right? So instead, we're going to absorb the concern. So we're going to say, you know what? You're right. I actually have no experience baking a cake. But when I was with this last company or blah, blah, blah company, one of the things I was tasked to do was bake cupcakes. And when I started, I kid you not, I had no business baking cupcakes. But what I did every single day was I would go home and study recipe after recipe after recipe. I would watch YouTube videos and then I'd test those recipes. Then in addition to that, I would come to work every week and at least 3-4 times a week, I would sit with one of our best bakers and learn how he or she was baking their cupcakes. And still for the first 30-35 days, I had the most disgusting cupcake you could think of. No one would go near it. But by the 60th day, I actually had one of the best-selling cupcakes in the company. And by the end of the year, I had the top 3 best-selling cupcakes in the company. And I would use that same resourceful approach here. That makes sense? So you see what you've done is you've acknowledged their concern. So now they feel heard. And then you've redirected them from a negative back to a positive. Now, what happens if that concern is invalid? Like Regina actually does know how to bake a cake. Well, still, we want to use absorb versus deflect because most people would be like, oh, no, I actually can bake a cake or whatever, right? So instead we say, absorb the concern. So you say, that's my fault. I should have done a better job of clarifying that. I actually have 7 years of experience baking cakes. I can bake cheesecakes, cupcakes, and Serengeti's going to say, yeah, you're talking about food again, but yeah, I am, right? So you say, I actually have 7 years of experience baking cakes and I learned it through this and here's how I would, and so hopefully that answers your question. So again, you've acknowledged the concern and then you've redirected them from a negative to a positive. Fair enough? Okay, last point. You're going to get offers from this. This is one of my favorite stories. I'm not going to tear up this time because I've probably teared up 100 times talking about Sonia. Her name is Sonia. Sonia, before she worked with us, she was a mother of 3 divorced, making $15 an hour. What did she get? 5 years later, okay? Because once you're a client of ours, you're always a client of ours. So we help people for life. It's not like a one-time thing. 5 years later, after working together, she got a $200,000 job offer. 5 years prior, she was making $15 an hour. And it's crazy. Like I'm not going to read all this, but you could see like what this process can do. And you can use it over and over and over again if you want. So what happens when you get an offer? You're going to negotiate. Never just accept the first offer that you get because I promise you it'll come in low. Companies always come in low. You're going to go back and come in high. So how do we do that? Remember, negotiation is not just about your base salary. It's about everything. So if you're early in your career, you want to factor as much as you can. Do they have great mentors, good culture, good benefits? Am I going to learn here? Or am I going to earn here? If you're not learning or earning, don't take it. Okay? But if you can learn or earn or both, you're in a very good situation. And then look at everything else, culture, equity, you name it, right? Factor that into whether you want this job or not. And it's not about them winning and you losing. It's about you guys finding a win-win situation. So the next time you get an offer, never negotiate from your current situation. Okay? Just because you don't have a job right now or you're not in the ideal job, that doesn't mean you don't negotiate. You negotiate based on your value, not on your current situation. So this is kind of like the duh. You want to make sure that you've researched your salary range in the open market. Okay, so you know what to ask for when you go back. So make sure you study what it costs, what your title pays at small companies, startups, big companies, big tech, whatever. You can use some of these tools. There's a lot of really good tools out there, but these are a few that work really well. Okay. And then you're going to use the data that you just gathered from your research and respond with this. I'd respectfully prefer not to disclose this information, but what I'm happy to share is that the companies that I'm speaking to today are offering between the X range and Y range, and I'm very comfortable with that. The X, here's the key. The X should be slightly higher than the lowest amount you'd ever take, and the Y should be a little bit outrageous. Not too much, but slightly, okay? Oh, I already said that. So here's that. And then you provide them with options. So there's a thing called the Chinese menu philosophy. And what it means is when you guys go into a restaurant, you guys are ordering from a menu, right? We're all ordering from a menu. And it seems like we have free will because we get to order whatever we want, right? But really, we're just ordering from the options they've given us. So how much free will do we really have? So same thing goes with negotiation. When you negotiate, most people make the fatal error of saying, no, that's too low, or actually, I'd want this number. And the company can come back right away and just be like, nope. And now what? You're kind of done, right? So we always want the company to think that they are controlling the situation. The ball is in their court. And so you give them options. And usually we give 2 to 3 options. And we say, okay, would you consider one of these following options? Blah, 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 like higher base, more stock, higher thing. And then I guess can I just show you guys what it would look like? All right. So, okay. You guys see my thingy here, right? Where's my thing? Okay. So look at this. Oops. TikTok. Okay. See this? Let me zoom in because it's so tiny. You guys see this? You can screenshot. I don't care. Thank you for the opportunity, a TikTok, whatever, right? After reviewing the offer and benefits, I want to fully be transparent about the numbers. Based on the exploratory research, this is something that I typed in for someone. Based on this like research that I did, plus factoring in my background and how my achievements are aligned with what the role is required for this role is anywhere between 153 and 165, okay? And so I'd like to respectfully ask if there's any flexibility to close the gap. Would you consider these options? See how he kind of gets higher and higher with all the other parts of it? This, it gets higher, right? So now if I go back to my presentation, you'll see what I mean by that. Present the screen in full, whatever, present. Okay, so this is that same guy, the TikTok guy. No titles at TikTok. This is TikTok. This is the salary, 140, 25%, right? Equals 195 total comp. Remember that? I showed you that email? Oh God, I have it here. I literally should have done my research, but this is the email we sent back. So this is what he got, 140. Keep this in mind. Okay, and then this is the email we sent back. And then this is what they gave him. They couldn't change the bonus, but gave me 2 options: 160K and 460 RSUs, or 150. They let him pick the thing. Okay, I took the 155 because like I'd rather have more RSUs for a very promising company like TikTok. 63% salary increase. So remember, we went from this 140 and 425 RSUs to this 155. So total comp $222,000. And he only has like 5 years of experience, FYI, this guy. And then this, this is the only edit I made to this whole presentation. So this, let me show you guys something. Instagram. Okay, so here's my story. Look at this. Can you guys see this story? I posted this yesterday, so I'm showing you this because this happened to another client just yesterday. I said most people who feel this way, right? If you could read it. They don't negotiate because they don't have a job or whatever. Incorrect way. If you don't advocate for yourself, your future employer definitely won't. Okay? My client, the client that I'm talking about, he's been unemployed for actually a little over 9 months. He's actually a director of engineering. Okay? So he's very applicable to what you guys are doing. He actually told me he didn't deserve to negotiate because he's been out of work for so long that he should just be happy with what he gets. I actually said, fuck that. I'm not going to let that happen to you. Because this pisses me off because companies take advantage of job seekers when they know that they're desperate. I hate that. And I don't want you guys to ever feel that. So I created that same counter offer script for him, the one I showed you guys. I created that for him, made it applicable to the company. And I even told him, I was like, if they don't increase your thing, I'll give you the money back that you just spent on coaching with me. That's how sure I was. And I was expecting a 50 to 60K bump in his thing. And here's what he got instead. They converted 190K base and 190K stocks to 220K base and 300K in stocks and a 15K sign on. Base salary up. Look at that. $155,000 total increase in salary. You guys, does this not get you excited or what? I'm being like, this is crazy to me because this is what I live for. Always freaking negotiate. Always. Regardless of your current situation. Because you know what pisses me off? Like, this is what I wrote. They increased his total comp by 155, right? But technically they lowballed him but $155,000. What kind of crap is that? They could have just started by giving him an extra $155,000 and not have to make him feel bad, right? But this is what companies do because they knew, because he said earlier on in the interview process, which he botched, I told him, don't tell him that you're not interviewing right now. Always make it seem like at any given second, you could be off the market, right? So you hold the leverage. Never let them feel like they hold the leverage. So they lowballed him by $155,000. I'll never stand for that. So that's how you negotiate. Whew, I get heated about these things. Look at these. These are just a few people also very recently in Q1. Brandon, what did he get? 10,000 RSU. I don't know. You could read it here, right? Stephanie, damn it, I was supposed to block that. $55,000 more than what she was making. This client, this is really cool. They gave him, he went from $100 per hour to $175 per hour. So I know I went through a lot. So this is why I put this here. So if you guys ever feel like you're lost, just FYI, we're not taking any clients, but there are two ways you can kind of be part of the ecosystem that I'm a part of. Okay. One is you can always book a call with me. This is to join our coaching program, but we don't have openings. So sorry about that. We just filled our spots and we only work with 10 people at a time. So that's why we don't have any openings right now. But so this is how you book a call. I can drop this link into the chat if you guys want. Just tell me if you want it. And then here's the other way. We also have a free coaching program that you can be a part of. And in this coaching program, we hold once a week coaching calls. We coach people in here. We have a ton of free resources. And now it's up to over, I think it's like at 300 people. And you can network in here. You can meet hiring managers. You can meet other people. And it's just a really cool place to network and get free resources. Okay. Question, should he work there if he got lowballed so much? Yeah, because he really likes the company. You want to see something really cool? Check this out. See this Voxer app? This is where all of our clients live. We have one-on-one chats with all of our clients. Look at Atlas. We always ask every week, what was your biggest win for the week? She got an offer. Check this out. She went from, this was just yesterday, 32,000 to 104,000. This guy, Dane, he got 3 offers this week. This is the guy that I showed you his text message. He got 3 different offers this week. And so the stuff we coach on in our paid coaching program, we teach a lot of it in this group, in this free group coaching program. So if you guys want to be a part of it, let me just do this. Copy and paste it all. Here's how you can join that. And then if you want to be, if you ever want to learn about our actual coaching program and be a part of it, you can always book a call with me or someone in our company. And that is that. So with that being said, you all, No, I'm not paying the $9 to remove the watermarks. Remember this, my favorite quote of all time. All change is hard at first, messy in the middle, and beautiful at the end. And I believe that. So what you're about to do is going to change the entire way you search for a job. And in the middle, at some point, it might feel messy. In the beginning, it might feel messy. Don't worry, stick with it, because you guys are always closer than you think. And that's it. So I'll open it up for Q&A. And I'd just love to hear, did you guys find this valuable? Was this too much info? Too little info? What? Let me stop sharing.
I agree with Spencer. It was great. It was obviously a lot of information, but I feel like it was obviously necessary information and it all kind of came together at the end. And all the screenshots, definitely, I'm sure everyone else feels motivated to go and get that new job with a higher paying job. So,
Ooh.
it looks like a
Yeah,
lot of people.
sorry. It's like it's really hard to condense how to go about a job search just by saying, here's how you build a resume. And, I want to show you guys things that actually work. So yeah, sorry about that. But if you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer them. I know we have about 15 minutes left.
Yeah, so we do have some questions. Earlier, something I was also curious about. They were asking if how often do you open up your new coaching cohorts?
Every time we have at least 5 seats open, 3 to 5. Yeah, usually 5 seats. And Katie's going to be pissed because we're going to give away a free seat today.
Mhm.
So we really won't have any seats after that. But usually, yeah, when we have 5 people, or sorry, 5
Got it.
openings.
And then uh, going off of that, so you said you can either on LinkedIn for the free spot, either on LinkedIn, Twitter. I shared your LinkedIn. I don't have your Instagram or Twitter if you mind sharing that.
So
So people
Instagram
can
is
have. I know you shared it earlier.
just Career Sprout. I don't do anything on Twitter. So it's
Oh,
just
is it just for your? Okay, got it. So they
yeah.
just tag Career Sprout and then go from there. Got it.
Yeah, or tag at Gaurav Valani on LinkedIn. And then we'll just pick one and message you, and then Regina will let you know too.
Thank you. All right, so let's see. Um, Copy of the presentation. Greg is asking if you're able to share a copy of your presentation, but we're also recording this, Greg, so you can always watch it back if you'd like. And I'll share that where you can watch this back in a second. Yes, it will be on YouTube. So how McKay's asking, how would you implement consultative interviewing for someone looking for their first position?
Same thing, McKay. That's a good question. Same thing though, right? Like you want to show them that you're kind of a savvy buyer in the interview, right? Again, what we want to avoid is coming across as desperate, right? Desperate people don't ask any questions. They don't want to, right? But instead, you want to still understand like, hey, I'd love to know a little bit in your own words, what would you hope that this person come in and solve within the first 6 months to 1 year of being here? Also, how are you grading them on success? Up until now, what have you guys tried that hasn't worked? And what have you tried that you're most proud of? Right? Little questions like that go a long way because they're all open-ended. And then when they ask open-ended questions, you can say, oh, that's funny. I built something like that in my boot camp, or I totally get what you mean, or whatever, right? And you guys can start kind of vibing at a different level than just interviewer, candidate. You almost want interviews, just FYI, to feel like you're 2 people at a bar or restaurant grabbing lunch or a drink or something, right? Like just kind of low friction, kind of open. So asking open-ended questions gets you to kind of gets them to feel that way, like you're taking interest in them.
Got it. Thank you. Next question. I live in Hood River, a gorgeous small town. There are few to no opportunities for networking. How do you recommend I start?
Yeah, good question. None of our clients network like physically in person. It's all done through LinkedIn, these Slack user groups, Facebook groups, whatever. And so those scripts that I showed you, that script I showed you, that's like for you would want to message someone on LinkedIn in one of these groups or somewhere, right? So yeah, being in Hood River shouldn't derail you at all. Cool. Hey, thank you guys for sticking through all the way to the end. I appreciate it on a Friday.
Oops, sorry, put my mic on mute. Next question. I'm looking for my first job in tech after a boot camp. In the resume accomplishment section, should I put things from the past, unrelated jobs, since I don't actually have any proper tech experience yet?
Yeah, you could put your portfolio, your GitHub, and then anything that kind of shaped who you became, right? So is there something that you did that kind of helped build your resilience? Is there anything that you experienced that helped build your drive? Anything like that that you can mention? Because when you're first starting out, it's totally fine to mention these things. Something you did at school, extracurricular. So that's what I would highlight.
And then let's see. Sorry, coming back down. William's asking, I'm interested in moving from being a UX generalist into a more specialized area of UX or VR, where I'm doing some reading and taking some training, but don't have actual experience. Should I do anything different from what you've described?
No, I wouldn't. I would just be a little more targeted with who you're reaching out to, of course, right? So if you know the niche you want to be in, then focus on finding people within that niche, companies, hiring managers, recruiters in that niche, and then reach out to them. And if you don't have the experience yet, then speak to what experience you do have that's transferable, and also articulate why you're interested in that niche to help you kind of stand apart, right? Give like a very authentic, thoughtful answer. Hopefully that helps. And no, I don't. Well, actually, I do have a favorite book. It's not so career related. It's kind of like career life related. It's called the hell, it's right here somewhere. The 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 breakthrough millennial. It's written by a friend of mine named Adam Smiley. They call him Smiley Pazwalski. The breakthrough. It's called A Quarter Life Breakthrough. And it's really good because it kind of teaches you how to incorporate life and work, and like how to build the two together, and being thoughtful about, how you want to build your life, and then finding a career that supports your life rather than like arbitrarily just choosing random career goals and going after them. Sooner than later you're going to realize you hate that. So it's called The Quarter Life Breakthrough by Adam Smiley Pazwalski. That's a great one. And then the second one is called The Startup of You.
Got it. Some more questions. Thank you, by the way. So how would you connect on LinkedIn with someone you met virtually?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
same way. I would find their
LinkedIn.
name, and connect with them. Oh, can you
Uh,
hiring manager, right? I'm going to show you
yes.
that
So the question is, can you show us how to reach the hiring managers?
for sure. All right, let me pull up LinkedIn. Okay. So, let's see. I'm going to share my screen again. Thanks for reminding me, whoever did. Oops. Okay.
Yes, and
So, here is my LinkedIn profile. Can you guys, is it sharing it? No? Okay. So, let's assume you're going after like a software engineer role, right? Well, likely chance that your boss is going to be either a manager of engineering, director of engineering, whatever. Okay. So what we would type in is simply this: engineering and director. And let's say you wanted to work at Hulu, for example. I don't know. Right. Then you go to this. And now you have manager of software engineering, director of engineering, senior software engineering manager at Hulu. These are people that you can reach out to. And it's as simple as that. And you don't, again, we'll never know who the exact hiring manager is unless it specifies it in the actual job description. But then you're just taking a loaded guess. And it's fine because it's an educated guess, in my opinion. So if you reach out to 5 different people, well, then, and if one gets back to you, that's all you needed. The other thing you can always do too is you can just type in hiring and engineering or engineer. Okay. Or you could say, or let's just say full stack. I don't know why. So let's just do this. Hiring. You want to put these types of things in there, like parentheses, because what you're telling LinkedIn is find me somebody that has on their profile the word hiring, and then either they're an engineer or the words full stack, and then you type in your company, right? Hulu again. So look, we are hiring software engineers to join our blah, blah, blah. And you'll probably find people like this. Some people will just say hiring. Oh, look, hiring TikTok. Co-founder at this company, hiring. Quality assurance engineer, hiring, right? So now these are people, in my opinion, that are inviting you to reach out to them. Does that make sense? So this is how, it's kind of like one of the things that our clients do is that they'll just go and find people like that. And then they'll send 5 messages to senior leaders, hiring managers, and 5 to recruiters. And then usually they're getting, again, a 43.7% conversion rate right now. And that's kind of it.
That's a good trick to have on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Next question. Looks like you only have availability coming up on April 3rd in the calendar. Will you have additional dates available later in April?
Yeah, we will.
And then next question, what sort of roles do you recommend we look for as a TTA graduate? In general terms, assume we have no tech experience prior, but a degree in an unrelated industry. What sort of job role and salary would we target?
I would look at associate level positions, like associate or staff level positions. So staff engineer, associate engineer. Sometimes you might just find entry level engineer. I would look for those titles, staff, associate, entry level. And they're out
also
there.
asked about the salary for someone who has basically no tech experience and just did a coding bootcamp, for example.
I mean, depends. I've seen some blockchain engineers make as much as like 200 something thousand with no experience. I've seen people right out of boot camps make like 110, 105. You shouldn't go anywhere less than 95 because there's companies that pay entry level engineers over 95,000. Unless you just love the company or whatever, then you can come in, I would say like 80, 85. But I think that's a really good range, 80 to like 110.
Got it. And then going back to Sherry's question, so earlier she asked, how would you connect with someone on LinkedIn that you've met in person? She was asking what words you can use, basically how to approach them.
I always just say, hey, thank you so much. Hey, Sherry, you and I met at the Tech Academy presentation. I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to share a little bit about blank or talk about blank. I'd love to connect with you. And then if you have a specific ask, then share that too. Also, I'd love to know if you'd be open to chatting about your, associate software engineer position that position that you have open, because I recently graduated from the Tech Academy and I worked on a capstone project like this, or I did this. Here's my GitHub. Would love to chat. I'd just say something like that. So make it specific to like the thing they talked about or the thing you two talked about.
Got it. I hope that answered everyone's questions. Let me know if there are any more. But again, if you do have any questions, because usually I always come up with questions after the presentations, feel free to reach out. And I shared the LinkedIn in a few spots. Let me find your LinkedIn again. There we go. And also you can reach out to him on Twitter. And don't forget to, since we do have a free spot for Career Spouse, so make sure you do go on Twitter or Instagram or LinkedIn. Not
Oh, yeah,
Twitter?
not Twitter. Yeah, because I don't have Twitter. Or I mean, I do, but I
Oh,
don't use
sorry.
Twitter. Yeah.
Okay, so not Twitter, just LinkedIn and probably just LinkedIn, not
Yeah.
Instagram either.
No,
Okay.
you could do Instagram or LinkedIn, doesn't matter.
Okay.
But
All right. Any more
cool.
questions?
Thank you guys so much.
All right. It looks like we don't have any more questions, but as
Course.
I said earlier, we recorded this and I shared the link earlier. I can share it again. But thank you all for joining today's Tech Talk. Thank you so much for joining us. This was so informative. And I hope everyone has a great Friday.
Likewise, have a good weekend, everyone. Thanks, Regina. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Also, next week's talk, I kind of forgot about that. Let me share the link where you can RSVP. It's actually going to be a technical talk. We haven't had a technical talk in a while, but here is next week's tech talk if you do want to RSVP.
Oh, I gotta run, you guys. It's nice to meet all of
No
you.
worries.
Take care. Bye.
All right, bye. Thank you. All right, and yeah, that is all I have. It's actually going to be on DevOps. So if you are in the Tech Academy, that's something we cover actually. So it's going to go in more details. But if you're not familiar with it either, we're going to have that part about explaining what it actually is. So it can be very informative. But and then Sherry, we didn't get to your question. Oh, while you're on a Zoom call, got it. I can direct this question and get an answer and let you know. Just maybe send me an email reminder. All right. Well, that is it. Well, thank you guys for joining, and I'll see you guys.